I kind of like to take this in a little bit of a different angle, just because we should have a right to tell our stories. We should have a right to speak. Part of the problem that we feel like we don't have a voice already. And then you see what we have to go through inside a family court just to be in our children's life. It's ridiculous. It's outright ridiculous. But you know what? The social media giants are doing it to us too, I guess. I mean, yes, we've grown. I think it's right around 113,000 in 9 months. I have a warning at the top of my page now saying you have been marked as hate speech. We are limiting how many people can see what you're doing.
Wow.
And if you look, we've got videos that have got 100,000 views, and here lately we're lucky if we hit 1,000 or 2. And it's like, okay, I see what's going on. I make posts. It shows me how many people see it. Sometimes we're lucky if 80 to 100 people see our stuff out of a page of over 100,000. What's going on here? It seems like our voices are being suppressed everywhere we go. Now, if I go to a feminist page, they can say anything they want, man. And you go look at the traffic that's going on there. But here, to speak up for fathers' rights is one of the toughest battles that we can do. And we've got to stand up. You know what? There's days when it's like, man, I spent all my time building this up to actually have a voice, and they're taking it away from me. It's like, what do I do now? You keep doing what we're doing right here.
Right.
We need movement. And you, thanks to Dad Talk today, we've got a movement, we've got an organization, and we need to give you more content. We need to give each other more content. And Cash's story is amazing. I would love for your viewers to hear it from Cash himself. I'm his attorney. I'll tell you, I'll let him speak any place, anytime he wants. He's one heck of an advocate.
Absolutely. Cash, tell us a little bit about it, my man.
Well, my case isn't unlike so many others. And what's unique, I guess, about my case, and where I get a lot of pushback from people when they learn about how outspoken I am, I have a hard time understanding when they tell me, well, you should just listen to the judge and keep your mouth shut. Listen to that, to that response for a moment and really rethink what that person told me, which was for me to shut my mouth, do as I'm told, and everything will work out in the end.
Be complacent.
And that is that's tyranny, people. I mean, that is tyranny. If you cannot criticize your judge or their behavior or their rulings out of fear of punishment and a reprisal, which is what happened to me, we are in fact living in tyranny, and they can't even acknowledge it. They're so brainwashed into believing that just do what you're told, just comply. Okay. That's what society has come to, that we don't question what's happening, and we need to question more. We need more transparency, not less. And that's what I was advocating for early on in my case was, hey, Your Honor, I'm just saying, as a dad, I think this is kind of a screwed up system, and I think that it could stand to have some changes. So what do? Cut me off from my children, put me on supervised visitation, spin me in the media as being a deadbeat father, which is what the Daily Herald did, article after article. They try to portray me as this deadbeat dad, and unfortunately, much of society doesn't have a critical thinking, skills, and so they don't ask themselves, well, wait a second. This father's been in the military for 20 years. He's got a top secret clearance. He's been a reserve sheriff's deputy and volunteered hundreds of hours in his community. He's got volunteer medals and a chest full of medals from the military. Maybe there's something more to this that we're not seeing and somebody's not telling us. But nobody asks those questions. And so then when you bring it up, and like in my case, my judge called me arrogant. He said I was the most arrogant person that he had ever dealt with in his, 19 years of treachery. I'm not arrogant. I just happen to know a tyrant when I see one. And when somebody's going to use children to silence your free speech, and I'm standing there in uniform going, wait a second, this uniform I'm wearing represents the fight that I've had for our constitutional rights for my entire adult life. And here you are telling me, because of my outspokenness, because of my First Amendment, you're going to take my kids from me. And I mean, fireworks are going off. I'm like, this is not America. This isn't real.
Right.
And it's been a 6-year battle of just reprisals and punishment for my outspokenness is what it amounts to.
So this is for real. This really happened. Cash is running for governor on fathers' rights. He gets 109,000 votes. And what do? While he's running for governor, one of the few people to ever run for governor and make father's rights a centerpiece of his campaign, they're claiming, oh, you really don't want to be with your kids. No, he wants to be with his kids. He's fed up with you. He's becoming a public advocate for everyone that's going through this. And he missed he missed a few status calls. He missed like one. I talked to his former GAL. He might have missed one visit with one of his kids. And what did they do? A week after the election, on November 14th, 2018, on a status call, they suspended his contact with both children without a motion, without being accused of any abuse or neglect, because there wasn't. They retaliated him against Kash, and there's no doubt that they did that. It's even more bizarre. This Judge Salvi, who's a judge in Lake County, his brother Al ran for Senate in 1996. On April 30th, he made a series of Facebook posts telling Kash to give up his spot on the Libertarian ballot and give it to him, writing publicly that his brother was the judge in the case. And then he refused to recuse himself, which is even more bizarre, is that in August, there's a newspaper article where Kash does everything right. He goes before the judge. He says, Judge, I'd like you to recuse yourself. Your brother is asking for my spot on the ballot. He has a personal interest in this case. Judge Salvi refuses to recuse himself. A month later, the appellate courts upholds that he wrongly unrecused himself in another case because his nephew was working for a law firm with a case before him. So this guy has a long history of family personal interest. He's totally disqualified from this case. And a week after the 2018 general election, suspends Kash's parenting time on a status call for missing 3 status calls while he's publicly running for governor.
Ted, I think that the idea, what Kash has done has gone public, as you've said. And I look at it this way. Being public is our protection. Because if it's not public, they do all sorts of things that are even worse. And I understand that when you go forward and you go public, you're putting yourself up to be criticized a lot. And people will tell you you're angry, you're mean, you're bitter, you're this, you're that, you're arrogant. But the thing is that you want it to be public. Because being public is your protection. And people say, wait a minute, I've gone through the same thing. And I first met Kash, I think, at the Restoring Freedom rally a number of years ago. And I made sure to speak with him personally. I wanted to go up there because I wanted to see, what is he really about? And I respect the fact that he was public. And the thing is that I think part of the reason they're trying to go after him is because maybe he's given some other people the same confidence and courage to attack him publicly. And that's what we should all be doing, in my opinion.
Well, I'll give you an example. Kash has a lot of courage, and what he did after a long history. This is back in early 2018. He rightly was afraid that, all right, I'm going to run for governor and I'm going to get retaliated against. Mm-hmm. And so what he did is he tried to remove his case into federal court, which anyone knows that you can't remove into federal court unless you're the defendant and you do it within 30 days. His case has been going on for 2 years, but he just said, this guy's going to throw me in jail. He's been wrongly assessing my veterans disability money, threatening me with contempt, throwing me in jail, and now I'm going to go on public television all over the state talking about the kinds of rights that him and people like him are violating. So he files a federal removal. And it gets remanded back, but it was out. But guess what happened? While the case was remanded or was removed into federal court from March 8th, 2018 until April 2nd, 2018, the circuit court in his case had no jurisdiction at all, which is quite funny. It was a legitimate removal. They had no jurisdiction. Well, guess what they did? The judge calls them back while he's running for governor, has no jurisdiction whatsoever, enters an order making the visitation with his daughter by agreement with his ex, meaning that he's never going to have parenting time with his daughter because his ex is trying to erase him.
Right.
So that's the kind of, and so there was another guy, I just took this case yesterday, another pro bono case, where this other guy, ruling comes down, freaks him out, he files another removal. So that, yes, there has been some copycats of the kind of tactics that Kash takes. But as far as having the following that he has and the movement that he has, It's hard to replicate that. So,
Right.
What we really sort of rely on is people, feeding into more high profile people to really expose the most clear abuses. And I hope I'm not alone in Illinois, but I've seen countless horrible examples of fathers showing up on status calls, walking out with no visitation, restricted visitation, without even being noticed of what they're accused of. I know a guy who has the same judge that I had that lost parenting time with his daughter because the allegation is that he wouldn't return her backpack. It ended up the girl had 2 backpacks, and the backpack in question had been sitting in storage for 6 months. So the judge summarily suspends his parenting time, and he's never gotten it back. No record. It would never ever get close to the standard of endangerment. But this is what these people do. They just come in, they play God. The state isn't even a party to these cases. These are private civil cases adjudicating the right between 2 adults, adjudicating the rights of children. The state has no interest other than making sure that the children has maximum contact with both children, and 2, that there's not an excessive use of public resources. That's it. That's it.
So Ted, go
ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I was going to say that, in Texas, you probably followed this one a little bit too, but the Jeff Younger case, Jeff Younger has twins, and his ex-wife was trying to transition one from a boy into a girl, start that stuff. And he was 7 years old at the time. He was going to be 8. And this is what the courts permitted to take place. And what Jeff did, he went public with everything. He put out transcripts, and, it was because he was public and that he kept on speaking. And there were other people that were involved with stuff too, that all of a sudden people are saying, are you really serious that this is an issue? And that's why I keep on saying that, had Jeff been secretive, had he not been in your face public with all of this stuff, and other people that were doing the same, this would not be an issue. Perhaps it would even be brought to anybody's attention. So I'm completely for the idea that, we continue to go public, we continue to put the case forth, and we let others deal with it. This is the case that, that we're being victimized. We're merely asserting the rights that we should have. They should be ashamed, not us, them. And I think the spotlight needs to be turned on them.
Well, I've spoken to the media, and the media have told me, they said, if there's back and forth allegations, they don't want to get near it. And I don't blame them. But when you talk about procedural violations like occurred to Cash, easy as pie. They should be all over these cases.
Right.
In cases where there's no accusations of abuse or neglect, like what happened with Cash, Cash is guilty of running for governor and exposing what they did to him. That's what he's guilty of. Yeah, there's absolutely nothing that should be preventing anyone in that situation from coming on Dad Talk today and talking about his story.
Well, unfortunately, fellas,
Absolutely.
Once you try to have a voice, you also get a target on your head from the very people that want to shut you up. When I leave here, I'm going to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina for a senator that's running to get shared parenting going. They waited all the way until this last week and then went on Facebook Lives and read his court documents and custody proceedings and tried to paint him as that deadbeat dad. And I said, this makes me not want anything to do with politics, but it shows you the corruption that these people have once you have that voice.